Hi everyone, welcome to Think IAS. We are here with History series and today we'll be talking about class 12th History chapter King, Farmers and Towns. This is the first part of the video. Let's just see what was the development occurred after the end of Harappan civilization. Rigveda get composed. Agricultural settlements in North India, Deccan Plateau and parts of Karnataka took place. The pastoral population in Deccan and South India took place and there was a new method of disposal of dead people were there which was known as megastheles. That was an elaborated stone structure they used in central and south India. In some cases, those who were dead, they were buried with iron tools and weapons. And after this, there was an emergence of early states, empires, and kingdoms. Now we have to see what happens and how these empires, states, and kingdoms originated. So in 1830s, James Princip, one officer of East India Company, he deciphered Brahmi and Kharosthi, two scripts used in the earliest inscriptions and coins. This was the first epigraphy took place in India, and epigraphy means study of inscription. After this, he found that king is mentioned as Piyadasi, which means pleasant to behold, and in Buddhist text, king was known as Ashoka. After this decipheration, Indian and other European scholars they think to reconstruct the lineage of major dynasties by composing text of from these inscriptions. Later, they investigate whether there are any connection between political changes and economic social developments or not. Now we have to first move towards the earliest states. So there were 16 Mahajanpads, which are important earliest states. In 6th century, it is associated with early states, cities, and growing use of iron, coinage, growth of Buddhism and Jainism, and hence we will be learning about all these things. So early Buddhist and Jain text they mention about 16 states they known as Mahajanpads. Out of these 16 Mahajanpads, Vaji, Magadh, Koshala, Kuru, Panchala, Gandhara, and Avanti, they were common and we can say they are the most important Mahajanpads. These Mahajanpads they were ruled by kings known as Ganas or Sanghas, and they were oligarchies. That means the power was shared by a number of men or a group of men who collectively known as Rajas. Even Mahavira and Buddha belong to these Ganas. Now we can see here the capital letters or the capital words written here are showing the Mahajanpads of Buddhist and Jainism. Each Mahajanpad they are fortified with capital city, and these capital cities have armies and bureaucracy. In the 6th century onwards, Brahmins they start composing Sanskrit texts which was known as Dharma Sutra. These were the norms which have to be followed by rulers, and it was expected that a ruler should be a Kshatriya who can collect taxes and tribute from cultivators, traders, and artisans. The rulers or the kings who want to increase the wealth, they usually raid on neighboring state, and it was legitimate means of acquiring wealth. Now we have to learn about Magadh. It was the first among the 16 as it was the powerful Mahajanpad. It is in present day Bihar. Why we can say the Magadh was the powerful Mahajanpad? So the reason is uh, given by two people. One was the modern historians who said that because of the productive agriculture, because of iron mines which provide tools and weapons, and elephants present in the forest area, and Ganga and its tributaries which were helping in the communication. All these factors make the Magadh as most powerful Mahajanpad. Whereas the early Buddhist and Jain, they said that because of the kings or maybe the individual ambitious kings like Bimbisar, Satu, and Mahapadmananda, they were best known kings or uh, king, yeah, I would say kings only. They were the best known kings who were very ambitious to increase the power of Magadh, and hence, because of the ministers who helped them in implementing their policies, make the Magadh more powerful. The Magadh it was having Rajgaha as its initial capital, which means House of King. It is present day Rajgir in Bihar. But later in the 4th century, the capital was shifted to Patliputra, that is present day Patna. Now, from state, we are moving towards empire. So the Magadh it grows so well, and after its growth, it was emerged as an Mauryan Empire. The founder of Mauryan Empire was Chandragupta Maurya. He made this empire so big that it was moved from I would say from Patna or Bihar of today's present India. It moved towards the Afghanistan, Balochistan, and his grandson Ashoka. He conquered Kalinga, that is the present day Orissa. So the Mauryan Empire was there from east to west. Now you have to see how we have so much information about Mauryas. So there were some sources which provide us the information about Mauryan Empire. The very first source was the sculptures available. Then there was a person, Megasthenes, who was the Greek ambassador in the court of Chandragupta Maurya. As he was the contemporary, so he wrote about Mauryan Empire in his work, and we can get information from there. There was one person, Kautilya, or known as Chanakya as well. He was the minister of Chandragupta Maurya, and he composed a book known as Arthashastra, which provide brief information about Mauryans. Then some Buddhist, Jain, Puranic, and Sanskrit literary texts. They also provide some information about Mauryans. And the most valuable resource I would say is the inscription of Ashoka on rocks and pillars. Ashoka was the first ruler who inscribed his messages on stone surfaces to proclaim what he understood about Dharma, which is actually known as Dharma now. In his inscriptions, it was included that we should respect elders, we should be generous towards Brahmins and those who renounced worldly life, we should treat slaves and servants kindly, and we should respect religion and tradition of ours as well as others. Now we have to see what was the empire administration of this empire. So there were five major political centers. First was the Patliputra, the capital. Then four other provincial centers were Takshila, Ujjaini, Tosali, and Swarnag- Swarnagiri. We can say this administrative power was very strong in this empire because the area was from Afghanistan to Orissa, and the inscriptions we found or the messages we found in Orissa is similar to that of the Afghanistan. That means whatever the administration was there, it was so powerful that all the decisions were taken from one place, and it was spread to all the parts of the empire. Takshila and Ujjaini were chosen because they were on the most important long distance trade route. So they were chosen as the provincial centers. And Swarnagiri was important because of the gold mines in Karnataka, and hence it was taken as the administrative center. So as you can see, this blue area, it is showing the Mauryan Empire. So it was from north to south and east to west. To control the military activity, there was a committee which has six subcommittees which were controlling different parts of military. The first committee, subcommittee, I would say, was for navy. Second was for transportation. Third was responsible for foot soldiers. Fourth was for horses. Fifth was for chariots. And sixth was for elephants. There was one special officer also who was known as Dhama Mahatma. He was appointed by Ashoka to spread the message of Dharma. Today we'll be doing till here only. In the next video, we'll be learning more about this chapter. I hope you like the video. I hope you like the content. If you have any doubts, you can ask in the comment section. And if you want me to make more such videos, you can write down the topics in the comment section. We'll definitely make the videos on that. Till then, like, share, and subscribe. Think IES. We'll meet you soon. Thank you. Bye bye.